We're live. How's it going, everyone?
There we go. Chris said the intros today. We're back. It's Friday. Happy Friday, gang.
It is, yeah. Great Friday here at Bitcoin Magazine. What are we talking about today, guys? What's on the radar, news-wise?
There's a small country somewhere off in the world doing something to Bitcoin, but we're not going to deal with that. We're going to deal with bad words on YouTube. How do we say these country names without getting our channel taken off today? We're just going to call it Zelensky and Putin lands, just so that we avoid any sort of potential channel cancellations by our YouTube overlords. But also, like, YouTube, stop doing that kind of stuff. Chris, present it to us.
Yeah, so article posted on Bitcoin Magazine, which you can read on our website or go to Earn Carrot and earn some sats by doing so. But one of our longtime writers, Namcios, wrote an article talking about how Ukraine was banning the purchase of Bitcoin with its local currency. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but I know the abbreviation, I believe is the UAH, or the Ukrainian dollar. So that wasn't exclusively to Bitcoin. It was actually all cryptocurrencies, but there is like a legal loophole that you can buy with foreign currencies. You're allowed to buy up to $3,900 equivalent US, or about $100,000 of, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, the Ukrainian dollar.
Hryvnia?
Hryvnia? I think that might be right.
Hryvnia? I have no idea.
To be honest, I learned after meeting Svi Mihailuk. That's how I pronounce it. It's so hard to pronounce Ukrainian and Russian. It's like nothing to do with any sort of language.
Mihailuk's how you pronounce the currency?
No. The basketball player on the Toronto Raptors, his last name, that's how you pronounce it. I was like, I would have never gotten that.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'll pitch it over to you guys. It's very interesting that they were collecting, or at least the government was trying to collect cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few others to try and raise money for their war defense against Russia early on, back in February, or at least in early March. And now they're banning their citizens from exiting the currency that I assume is dealing with inflationary issues like the rest of the world. What are your thoughts on that? I'll shoot it over to Alex first.
Sorry, what was your question exactly?
Talking about how Ukraine was asking people to give them Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and to support their war defense, but then now they're banning their own citizens from exiting their Ukrainian dollars into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. This is just typical nation state behavior. Like, they're trying to prevent capital leaving the country. You're going to see a lot of like price controls and capital controls across the world, due to pandemics, due to like logistical issues, supply chain issues, war. I mean, we're just like kind of fortunate geographically and like because of our kind of like power projection that we don't experience too much of it at home. But so like the only thing we can compare this to as US citizens off the top of my head is just like controls on your own bank account, paying to use your own money, little small kind of like pretty relatively meaningless inconveniences. But yeah, you can see how in other countries that are not so financially privileged, like it's increasingly important to, I would say, put your savings in Bitcoin, because they can't actually control like these peer-to-peer interactions, right? This is basically just attacking an on-ramp of Bitcoin. And it's not really an attack on Bitcoin. It's just a defensive measure to try to keep their like shitty state currency from evaporating.
Yeah, and but Q, before I shoot it over to you, I'll just note some two lines from the article that were really funny and kind of highlight exactly what Alex said. The bank said the move seeks to prevent unproductive capital outflows in a bid to preserve the health of the country's FX market. And then it says, under the new rules, the national bank, no, that's not it. The restrictions are not exclusive to Bitcoin. The new directives imposed by the MBU cover a slew of asset purchases and quasi-cash transactions. Where was I looking for it? The relevant changes will help improve the foreign exchange market, which is necessary prerequisite for easing restrictions in the future, as well as reducing pressure on Ukraine's international reserves, the bank said in a statement on Thursday. So yeah, I mean, it's just exactly that, restricting capital flows and trying to protect their monopoly on money that they have there. Q, I'll shoot it over to you.
Like, yes, they are trying to protect their capital. I think what they're genuinely afraid of is a bank run. And then their dollar, their version of the dollar, the Hermia, is that what we agreed we're going to pronounce it as? Hermia, the Ukrainian dollar. They're genuinely afraid of that. I know that there's this big conversation going on right now, like, wait, whoa, you guys were accepting Bitcoin for donations to like fight this war, but at the same time, like now your citizens aren't allowed to do it. Like, let's dissect that a little bit. And I'm trying to, in real time, like look up some of this stuff. But like, they're not accepting Bitcoin donations for the sake of like, give us some Bitcoin and we're going to hold it with you guys, all you Bitcoiners, in the way like El Salvador buys Bitcoin to hold it. Like, no, they're getting the Bitcoin and then they're using it, either immediately transferring it over to whatever currency they need to go and get more equipment or supplies. Or if this vendor is going to accept Bitcoin, then they'll send that vendor Bitcoin. But for the most part, like, they're not holding any sort of Bitcoin. They're just trying to use it as an ease of transaction because they recognize how easy it is, how it's not going to be shut down by Russia if Russia so decides to mess with them or whatever. Is it hypocritical? Absolutely. Is it ridiculous to tell people how and what they can spend their money on? Of course. Like, your country is dying. If your citizens have a hope to like maintain their life in any way in any other part of the world, if that's what they see is the best avenue or the best thing for them and their family to do, then who are you as a government to stop them, other than now being a new adversary? I'm curious to see if maybe public backlash does anything to maybe flip Ukraine's stance or not. I doubt it. I don't really think Zelensky is spending all day on Twitter in the way some other presidents and public leaders tend to. So does this change anything that's going on as far as what's going to happen with the Ukrainian dollar and Ukrainians' access to Bitcoin? Short term, yes. Long term, probably not. It probably incentivizes more people to figure out ways to get their hands on more Bitcoin as fast as possible, while they recognize like, hey, our dollar is just going to continue to diminish at a rate faster than most other currencies. So like, let's go get some euros. Let's go get some whatever, anything other than this, so that I can go and get out of this country. I think that's also a second layer that isn't necessarily touched on, but is worth a discussion over, is the idea that, hey, your citizens not only want to take their dollars in your nation's currency out and put it into some other form of currency, that's probably because they also want to leave said country. So you're watching this mass exodus of refugees leaving Ukraine. It's a double whammy. It's a double whammy. What I said on Simply Bitcoin yesterday was that every single government in itself is a corporation, and the citizens in that country are in essence the consumers, and the tax dollars they spend are the revenue income stream that each government receives. Well, if all of a sudden you're having mass exoduses due to war, due to refugees needing to find safe places to live, well, your tax revenue is going to start to go down. In addition, the amount of currency that's floating of your national currency just naturally diminishes as well. So I think this is a response to both of those things.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I could transition over to other news that I see. So Binance set out a change of service to users in Russia. Following the EU's fifth package of restrictive measures against Russia, Binance is requiring to limit service to Russian nationals or national persons residing in Russia, or legal entities established in Russia that have cryptocurrencies or crypto assets exceeding the value of 10,000 euros. As such, we require that you to complete your proof of address verification. So this is Binance specifically saying this. Accounts that classify under the restriction will be put into a withdrawal only mode. No deposits or trading will be permitted on these accounts. The limit also covers all spot, futures, custody wallets, and staked and earned deposits. In addition, all deposits to accounts for Russian nationals or natural persons residing in Russia or legal entities in Russia with over 10,000 euros will be restricted. Accounts for Russian nationals residing outside of Russia as verified with proof of address, and accounts of Russian nationals or natural persons residing in Russia will remain unaffected if the total value is under 10,000 euros. So, we're seeing once again, aside from just US sanctions, the EU is going along and sanctioning Russian people, also imposing their own capital restrictions. Q, Alex, I'll send it over to either one of you for comment on that.
Yeah, just like broad strokes here, I think punishing the Russian people for reckless war actions by Vladimir Putin is kind of fucked up. And using this to usher in more of like a surveillance state kind of thing, even if it's just through Binance, right?
Yeah, it's just through Binance right now, but I'm not sure if Kraken or other exchanges that are more broad are going to follow the same thing.
No, Jesse's cool at Kraken, man. He said like, fuck that. You can't punish like Russian citizens for this stuff.
I know he said it a couple of weeks ago, but I guess their ruling just came out, or at least Binance is getting ahead of it. I wonder if his hand is going to be forced with regulation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, especially, I'm interested in what our folks on Rumble know about this kind of thing, but Bitcoin itself is pretty incorruptible, pretty hard. I won't say impossible to seize, barring like torture, but if you store it right, it's really hard to take away. It's harder than like anything else to take away from someone if you've secured it properly. So this is the reason we don't you access as many exchanges as you can, but you do not keep your Bitcoin there. I don't care what country you live in. This can happen to you. The laws can change overnight, and all of a sudden your assets are frozen. It's just like with the bank. If you're politically misaligned, they'll freeze your assets and seize them. So to prevent that, go get yourself a bunch of cold cards, play around with them and use cold storage. There's no Bitcoin on this either, by the way. You can be geographically independent. So I can sign, I can sign for my Bitcoin without being at risk of having kind of like real access to it on me. It's a great thing. It's complicated, but this is the trade-off you make in Bitcoin, right? Like with banks, you're really trusting a third party with all your security. With Bitcoin, you've said, no, I'm not interested in like a third party. You take it off the exchange and you take on the burden of security yourself. And it's not as daunting as it may seem. And I think for most people, at least on this call, we can say like it's a very interesting and like edifying experience to learn how to secure your own assets through Bitcoin. But it's a long-winded way of saying, again, please, please, please take your Bitcoin off exchanges, regardless of where you live, and keep multiple exchanges open to you so that when one has some bullshit regulation or tries to overstep the bounds with you, you can simply move to another one, and they can't stop peer-to-peer transactions. So a lot of responses to that. Sorry.
Yeah, before Q responds, I'll even say, even aside from having multiple exchanges and potentially getting yourself into a KYC nightmare, you could also use non-KYC ones such as BISC, such as HODL, such as RoboSats, which I've used before and had an overall pretty good experience. These are all ways to get non-KYC sats and, kind of to Alex's point, do it in a peer-to-peer manner. They're kind of decentralized exchanges in order to facilitate that transaction. You could also do it at Bitcoin meetups or Bitcoin events, pay for someone with cash and they pay you back in Bitcoin. That's a great way to earn it. Q, I'll kick it over to you.
I mean, my big thing, and this is just a continuous drum that I keep pounding, like all of these different on and off ramps, all of these different ways that make it easy for, people who are not technically savvy like myself to be able to interact with the Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin itself is decentralized. We have that established, but these different points are the centralized points, and they are attack vectors for anyone, including a government. And we're watching now someone getting into Binance's ear saying, hey, if you want to do something as far as growing your business in the US, you need to follow US regulated sanctions. So that's just what I believe and am speculating is going on here. And then with that, it goes back to an earlier conversation that I've had with both of you as well as some guests. Like Bitcoin itself, what Satoshi did was remove himself. He went into it with no ego to say, this is for the betterment of humanity and society. I can become the richest person in the world if I stay attached to this, or I can change the world if I remove myself from this equation and leave it decentralized. Alex, you bring up how much of a homie Jesse has been during all of this. And he's adamantly pounded that drum, telling people in Canada, get your exchange, get your Bitcoin off of my exchange, because at a certain point, I can't keep holding off the government. He's been saying it again with all the stuff going on in Russia and Ukraine, saying on both sides of it, I'm not shutting down strictly because the actions of their leaders do not reflect the actions of each individual citizen as a result. So we have
but just sorry to interject, but that's a great example of like a good faith actor in the space who's running a business. Whereas certain other companies, maybe I won't name directly, but that do mining as a service, failed to issue any statements before telling them that they're going to like void contracts and not issue refunds. Like the second that Russia invaded Ukraine, they should have said, whoa, we can't continue services there. So we need to work out a solution. And now several weeks later, instead of being transparent about the fact that that business might go over well, I mean, you can see where I'm getting at. So like, I really appreciate the proactiveness of the people at Kraken and the transparency there.
Yeah, and even to hammer home on Q's point and Alex's as well, Jesse in that long tweet thread talking about he was reached out to by Canadian regulators as well as US regulators to try and ban, it was specifically talking about the Canadian protests of the truckers, but he's like, yeah, I'm not banning them, or even I believe the Russian thing was going on. He's like, that would be like, I'm here by my clients and customers. And basically, he even said, if we really want to talk about governments doing heinous things, we should look inward at the United States government. But he's like, ultimately, that's not a good business practice, basically eliminating the US market. So, and just to the point, to hammer it home one more time, he was basically just differentiating the governments from the people. So like while he was going after a dig at the US government, he says, obviously, for the most part, US people are peaceful and want the best for themselves and their families and others. Anything else you guys want to add there?
All good. Take your Bitcoin off exchanges.
Yeah. Trying to look at other news.
Also, while you're doing that, let's just like shout out the good ones. If you're in the United States, it's Friday. Very happy to receive my paycheck through Strike. Multiple paychecks. They just like whatever companies you work for, they can all be paid out through Strike, and the Bitcoin just shows up, or the cash shows up in the Strike account, and you can wait for a dip to buy. It's amazing. I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I was, but I'm just a big fan. Strike and Cash App are like my go-to Bitcoin purchases.
I use Swan. Yeah, not sponsored by them either. I know they have a little bit higher.
You use Swan for your day to day.
After everything that happened, you still use Swan?
I accidentally forgot to stop it, and they charged me for the year for like $50, so I just have it auto DCAing.
Oh yeah, I bet they charged me as well. I should check that.
So they charge me, so I might as well do it. But any additional purchase I do on Strike, because it's
because you prepaid your fees. That's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to like Swan, but if you're serious about Bitcoin, like they won't release my Bitcoin for like 30 days, like after I buy it.
Really?
And that's like completely unnecessary. Yeah, we were just on the call with Prime Trust today. It's just like, what the fuck? How can you not turn this over immediately?
Yeah, I withdraw pretty regularly to prevent having too much on there. I mean, I only have ever a few $100 max.
Right.
So all of it's in cold storage aside from that. So the risk I'm taking is very small by comparison to the rest of my stack. But
it's just too clunky, man. If you don't have a mobile app in 2022, how did I even
I actually
find this
got
exchange?
they were saying that they have the beta, and you could reach out to them if you want to get on that.
Yeah, I think not dropping a mobile app for Swan and at the conference was like I was very surprised that didn't happen. That should be their first priority.
Yeah, definitely. They didn't even
Right.
have a booth. They were just doing Bitcoiner jobs, which we're very thankful for. If you're looking for a job in the Bitcoin community, definitely go to
Oh
bitcoinerjobs.com.
yeah.
You can go to BTC Inc. We have, I think, 4 jobs posted on there right now. I think talking to our HR guy, there might be a few more going to be posted up on there. But yeah, just keep a watch, not just for us, but any other Bitcoin companies. That website's strictly Bitcoin, not crypto. That's one of the benefits of it, and it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, I love Bitcoiner jobs, man. I use that job board every day. After I rage quit Trader Joe's and then had no job and was just trying to fight for a living.
I just thought of this. If I can hijack for a second,
Go for it,
because the sort like I'm literally only going to be regurgitating this. So like if you guys want to get it from my source, go and listen to the latest episode of the All In podcast from last week. But what I've been talking a lot about, like, the planting season was a week for wheat. We talked about this a couple of days ago, how the planting season was about a month ago, and we have only a 90-day window of like how much
Can I
crop.
clarify something there?
Sure.
It's like cold as fuck in a lot of states right now. Like the planting season is very relative. Like it very much depends where you live.
Right. I've been and am still talking specifically about the Ukrainian planting and Russian planting that's supposed to be happening about a month ago.
Right. Well, there's not like, I just think to say like it should have happened a week ago is like patently, like you can't say that. Russia's huge. The climate.
I'm going to
changes,
still
you know
finish
what I
my
mean?
thought though.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't make sense. There's not like dates that you have to plant. That's not how it works.
Sure. I mean, there are larger farms over in Ukraine and Russia that operate on a 90-day cycle where they literally just replant and replant. They're not outdoor areas. They're in controlled environments that allow them to repeat this cycle every 90 days. They just haven't been able to plant because those regions right now are in conflict. So we are running out of wheat and bread. Anyway, so I'm stealing this from David Friedberg from the latest episode of the All In podcast, where he broke it down even further, highlighting how like this 90-day sort of allotment of wheat that we have on a global reserve is just averaged out based on every single country's sort of reserve supply. Some countries like Sri Lanka have literally zero supply saved up. Other countries like China have a year and a half worth of wheat calories saved up into storage. And now all of a sudden, essentially the positioning, a couple other countries with zero wheat supplies on reserve include Somalia and Ethiopia. And essentially what the conversation that was being circulated that is still running around in my head is the fact that China now sits on such a surplus of wheat while they're dealing with their own issues, more so due to the fact that they're doing like lockdown 99 at this point. They have been positioning themselves in Africa for a lot of resource reasons, but they have not really established their military presence there in the way that they have liked. But this leverage that they now have with an excess supply of wheat and i.e. calories that other countries are going to be begging them for, we don't have that much wheat calories stayed up in our storage. I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly, we only have about 6 months worth. So
in the United States?
In the United States.
Yeah. I would point out that China, is like 1.3, 1.4 billion people, whereas Sri Lanka is like tens of millions, probably. Ethiopia also just tens of millions. So, I mean, proportionally, it makes sense that they would have the most wheat stored up.
No, it doesn't. This is wheat and storage. This is not wheat and consumption right now. Wheat and storage and how you plan your storage is based on your governments and how they want to plan based on what their supply chain looks like and what their needs are. So I don't actually buy that their size gives them the amount. If you want to break down like their population, what it probably means is them having a year and a half, them being China, having a year and a half worth of wheat is a far greater amount than if Sri Lanka had a year and a half's worth of wheat in storage. That I buy, but the idea that they should just have it more because they have a billion people, No, I don't think those
I'm
two.
not saying who should have it, but if like they paid for it, like who cares? Like what does this have to do with Bitcoin? Like what I'm saying is like China is a more developed nation. They have longer production processes. They have better infrastructure for this kind of thing. They have more trade agreements with other nations. Like of course they're going to be in a better
I will
position than
absolutely pull
Ethiopia.
up this clip and remind you why it matters when we run out of wheat and all of a sudden we're beholden to China's wheat prices.
Yeah, okay,
That's why it
man. You
matters.
still got to tie it back to Bitcoin, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a conversation we've had multiple times on this show. I just wanted to share an update on it.
Yeah. Okay, so tie it back.
Okay. Can I continue now? All right. Thank you. So essentially, if these countries are unable to maintain any sort of wheat, if they're not able to get it and China is their only source, all of a sudden you have a new global player starting to have a different form of currency. The currency is not going to be dollars anymore. Now all of a sudden they're leveraging their wheat supply as a form of leverage to maintain control, either build out further resources, entrench themselves deeper into different parts of the world that are dying or want their wheat supply. All of a sudden you're going to slowly see a China dominance in a way that America's global dominance starts to diminish. We're not even going to notice it. It's going to happen very silently in the night while China just makes these deals because they don't need us to be an intermediary for any of these deals. So how this relates all back to Bitcoin is watch as wheat continues to become one of the most leveraged, most sought after things, crops in the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very Bitcoin related. Chris, next news story, please.
Yes. So we have OKCoin CEO was saying on Fox Business, Bitcoin is a strong inflation pledge amid volatile markets. Obviously, the price is down from its all-time high about 40%, 41%. Last time I checked, we were right at the 39K, 40K range right now. Obviously, I can send this over to Q in a little bit once he gets back about we're watching the bond market. And I know we always advocate that bonds are complete trash. Don't buy those. Buy Bitcoin. You're going to be much better off. But right now, the 3-year treasury bond, US treasury bond, surpassed the yield of the 30-year treasury bond. Typically, whenever the 2 and 10 inverse or the 3 and 30 or the 5 and 30, it's basically we're winding up for a recession or a depression, because basically what people are seeing is that their value, the dollars or the US currency that they hold, is devaluing rapidly. So they need these short-term bonds to provide more yield on that. And the 30-year, people don't want to hold the US dollar for 30 years, or at least put into a contract for 30 years, because obviously rates are pegged at what? We're like 25 basis points, 50 basis points by the Fed, basically near zero. And we're seeing inflation much, much higher. So it's causing a lot of issues there. Q, Alex, you want to add anything to that?
I mean, we've already seen the 2 and 10, the 3 and 30, like these inversions. I think this is a good signal for boomers to pay attention to. I don't know who else besides boomers would hold fucking bonds, but
Yep.
sell them and buy Bitcoin. That's my solution.
Q, anything you want to add?
Not an ad.
All right. I've got one more, potentially two more stories. So circling back to the EU, aside from their ban on capital controls, starting July 1st, this was just announced yesterday, I believe, and I'm not even sure who the woman was that was announcing it, but EU is on track to become the Hunger Games district, is the running joke, with a vax pass, and they were trying to implement it by July 1st. When I was looking into it, it looked like they will accept, but basically you're KYCing yourself for life, that you can't do anything unless you've had COVID, had the vaccine, had the booster, or recovered from COVID. But basically they want everyone in the EU, and they said all 27 countries that are a part of it are going to go forward with this. They're not calling it a vax pass, but they're calling it a green health pass or something like that. I forget what the actual name was. I guess if there's any comments on that from you guys.
I don't know how that works, because a lot of countries aren't supporting that right now. Like you can enter freely. So I'm curious how that works in terms of like tourism and travel.
Yeah, and it was also weird because I thought they were going to be strict about requiring the jab. I guess I shouldn't say the V word. Might get that
Yeah, I would
channel.
also say like you're under no obligation to comply with these people. They're fucking morons. Like fake your vax pass, fake your COVID test. There's no centralized system that can parse all of this stuff. Like it's complete bullshit. They can't force that upon you to live your life.
Yeah,
Like
and the wording was weird too. Like I thought it was going to be only about getting the jab and requiring that, but they're basically trying to mass KYC everyone. So I guess you could sign up saying if you haven't gotten it, but then you put yourself at risk or as a target because now they're going to try and force you to get it. I'm not sure. It just kind of seems like a KYC nightmare. And they said all 27 nations signed up, but then she alluded or concluded the speech by saying 10 are already ready to implement by July 1st. So it just seems very arbitrary and weird. Like I said, it's not capital controls per se, but definitely trying to KYC all of Europe to do that. Q, I'll send it over to you.
I mean, it's just a government in general, last ditch efforts for control in very different facets. We talked about it at the beginning of the show: control over the money supply, control over where citizens are trying to escape to. Now you're seeing it control over tourism. I mean, to Alex's point, like look at El Salvador. El Salvador in 2021 was the only country in the world, I believe, that saw tourism increase versus every other country had a decline in tourism year over year. I mean, I'm not saying it's because of Bitcoin necessarily, but the fact that they don't have these vax mandates, that they're not forcing you to do these things, it makes it easier to go into those countries. At the same time, like, if you have family in a certain country that has these requirements, it becomes a new hurdle for you to deal with. This is all just control. This is literally, you are on the you're in the last quarter in the final 2 minutes of these governments and the control that they have, and they're doing anything and everything they can to hold on for the win. But you know what? Just give Kobe the ball with 3 seconds left, and he'll drain it, and we'll get the win.
yeah, man, like if you didn't know, if you somehow made it to like this point in life without knowing, this state doesn't care about you. They you're nothing but like a little economic battery for them. Like don't comply with this shit. Like it's completely nonsense. I think they're gonna drive out a lot of good people from their countries. Like everyone, and I know not everyone, but a lot of people that I know in Germany are leaving. A lot of people in Austria are leaving. A lot of people in England are just like trapped. I mean, just yeah, I don't know what the solution here is, but compliance does not give you some sort of reward. Like you're not going to be rewarded with however many virgins in the afterlife with complying with tyrants. Like you have to have principles, and you have to like live your life according to those principles. And if you don't know what they are, hopefully COVID elucidated some of them.
Yeah. Keeping on the long of tyrants. So I do not believe we hit on this yesterday. Stop me if we did. It's a little bit lengthy, but I'll keep it short. So Jared Huffman is a congressman out in California. He basically sent a letter to the Biden administration, and he was basically saying, we write to request that the EPA ensures crypto mining facilities are not violating foundational environmental status or statutes like the Clean Air Act or the Clean Water Act. We have serious concerns regarding reports that cryptocurrency facilities across the country are polluting communities or having an outsized contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. As cryptocurrency gains popularity, it is essential to understand the environmental risks and pollution associated with this industry. He was basically then goes on to applaud the Biden administration for the executive order, talking about, doing more research on them. Then he goes on to say efforts are currently underway to reopen closed gas and coal facilities to power cryptocurrency industry and undermining our battle to combat climate crisis. While some facilities claim to be cleaner, he puts in quotes, by creating energy from coal refuse, these coal-fired power plants still emit hazardous air pollutants and leak toxic contaminants into our waterways. Cryptocurrency mining is poisoning our communities. And then this last, I apologize, there's one last paragraph, and it's the most important. Of particular concern is inherent energy inefficient proof of work mining. He names it by name, POW. Mining technologies to validate transactions, proof of work based cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and Zcash. And then he goes off on this weird tangent. A single Bitcoin transaction could power the average household for a month. He literally says that in the letter. According to estimates by researchers, Bitcoin produces annually carbon emissions comparable to Greece.
All right, we don't even need to read. This is all fucking bullshit. Like, we don't need to read this.
One last thing. He said proof of stake are available and they're 99.99% lower energy demands than proof of work to validate transactions.
Yeah,
So
that's false. These are just patent lies. I don't know who wrote this article, but they don't know what they're talking about. Like,
it was the article that has been debated before. DeVries, it's been debunked a bunch of times by Nick Carter and a bunch of people.
We don't even need to waste time on this. Like, look, proof of stake is great if you enjoy the system you're currently in and where you're not able to like have any savings and your currency's devalued and controlled by a bunch of pedophiles. Like, continue with proof of stake. Like, continue, wasting time with proof of stake. But if you actually want a tether and you want like laws of conservation and like physically like sound, thermodynamically sound money that's not controlled by the state or a third party and that's distributed and fair and open and permissionless, that's why we mine Bitcoin. We've given sovereign wealth funds to 750 billion. What's the market cap right now? Like, and protecting that network is a worthwhile energy expenditure. It also, like, we talk about every day how Bitcoin incentivizes cheap sources of energy, like not coal. And it's getting there. Like hydro, if they would actually allow us to have nuclear power plants, we wouldn't have to burn coal.
I agree. Q, anything you want to add?
I fucking hate the state of California.
Hey man, it's nice to visit.
I looked this guy up while you were talking, and I genuinely I'm trying to figure out a way to like send him an email because you can only be in his district. And his district
is a him? You're throwing around a lot of pronouns here without checking. Q.
I'm assuming his gender is male. Yes.
It might be in his Twitter bio, to be honest. I can look this up while Q's talking.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is this is an interesting thing. And honestly, I should have looked this up. Is he a Democrat?
He is.
Okay, because that's really interesting because the district he represents is not a very liberal district. It's like way, way up north, but not San Francisco County. It's like the furthest north district. So this is more like farmland, more people who I think are kind of like hate the Nancy Pelosi's, quite frankly. So this is a very curious thing. I mean, this isn't the area of Humboldt where like a lot of pot farmers are from. It's more coastal. So I just hate fucking idiots in California who run the show here. Like I honestly, to Alex's point, I don't want to give this any more air. I'm going to get in touch with this guy and this is going to be a separate thing.
Yeah, I know that there's a couple people from the BPI Institute that are reaching out, as well as Dennis Porter. We're reaching out to him to try and
by the way, I've tried to get these journalists on before. They don't, like, they can't argue. I mean, I'm not a very good arguer either, and I in their position I wouldn't come on either, but they don't stand behind their words and they can't back it up with facts. Like, there's not a correlation between this is a transaction on Bitcoin, it used this much energy. Like, that's not how it fucking works. So this whole premise of this article is false.
Yeah. And there was a great thing I heard in Cafe Bitcoin, which is a space that we co-host with Swan Bitcoin this morning. They had Kaboom Racks on, which is a mining they provide reused ASIC miners to people that are looking to buy them. But there was a great quote that someone said, it's like Bitcoin mining exposes all the BS and fiat in the energy markets. And it's something I never thought about, because you're trying to find the only thing you control with Bitcoin mining, aside from the ASICs and the devices that you have there yourself, the only other thing you can actually control as an input is energy cost in terms of where you plug them in. And he made a great point, exactly, not to criticize Q once again, but he's like, yeah, in California, when your energy prices are 40 cents per kilowatt hour, it makes no sense to mine there. Where one of the other guys in the call, I forget where he was in the world, he wasn't in the United States, but he's like, I'm getting 4 cents per kilowatt hours. That's a 10x improvement to energy prices in California alone. And he was looking for ways to get S9s, older models, because he's like, I don't have a lot of capital, but they will still be profitable at 4 cents per kilowatt hour compared to they would not be profitable at all at 40 cents per kilowatt hours. So it incentivizes cheap, renewable, if you can get free energy, that's the way to really mine. Alex, Q, I'll kick it over to you guys.
Yeah. Go ahead, Q.
I was just going to repeat what I said yesterday. Like, the next iteration of green energy capture and utilization comes from Bitcoin mining because they are most incentivized to figure it out. Upstream data is the perfect case study and example of this exact fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah, 100%. We'll just prove them wrong over time. I think a lot of Bitcoin miners are gonna. I think it really exposes like just how you learn all that's wrong with the current financial system and the legacy monetary system by virtue of like a simpler and better solution, which is Bitcoin. Like I think you're gonna learn the same thing about the energy markets. Like I've learned a lot. I've learned, that solar, wind, like these are pretty much like bullshit lip service efforts to get paid out in government subsidies that don't actually contribute like meaningful amounts of energy to the grid and are not sustainable. I mean, there are exceptional circumstances, but broadly, like we're not going solar. You're not going to be powering your life off of solar energy in the future. So I don't know. I think people will just be educated as they use Bitcoin and they kind of grok the value. But if you don't use Bitcoin, as like all these journalists that write about it, like clearly have never used the shit before. Because once you custody Bitcoin on your own, you kind of realize the value of like, oh, this is stateless money. This is stateless sovereign property. What's that worth? Millions per coin. I mean, there's nothing else like it. Like this like alters the course of humanity, this invention. It's a worthwhile energy expenditure. But you can't, value is subjective. So they're going to have to try Bitcoin themselves or watch as everyone else benefits from it around them. And then maybe they'll reevaluate their value assessment.
Yeah. I have one more thing that actually just came in like 40 minutes ago. So I guess breaking news or late breaking news. Hold on, where was it? So the LME to end gold and silver futures trading by July. So it looks like they're trying to also quell the traditional gold and silver markets. I don't know why this would be a good thing though, because that would hurt a lot of the banks that are using these futures contracts in order to depress the price of those things. But it's very interesting that they're trying to end futures contracts trading by July. I know that's kind of unrelated to Bitcoin, but I know a lot of the gold bugs are always claiming that the paper markets are what's crushing them, which remains to be seen. And we've seen it with JP Morgan getting that $900 million fine for manipulating markets. Any comments there, guys?
I just really struggle to care with anything that's happening in the fiat political world. Especially, I mean, I understand there could be like long-term, I don't know, like ripple effects from this, but I hope that it just drives people to exit their worthless gold positions and move into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's just superior monetary technology.
All right, Q. Alex, anything you guys want else to add, or are we going to wrap up this one?
Let's wrap it, guys. I'm feeling left out here. I don't have my little hodler. I'm gonna have to get my little hodler.
Yeah, quick nod, because I know someone was asking the chats. You guys can actually buy Moon Shadow. This little hodler is available on the Bitcoin Magazine store. Just pop over to the Bitcoin 2022 section. We have a limited supply of these left, and once they are done, they are done. We're not going to make any more of this little hodler ever again. So if you want to come join the little hodler, be sure to check it out.
I do have a little hodler. I have a little hodler cartoon, which, I mean, this is just a hunch. I was really happy this is actually included in here. It's a part of the newest edition of Bitcoin Magazine. Go get yourself a subscription. Go get an issue. I've got a piece in here. There are a lot of really strong pieces in here. This is the Moon edition, second edition after our remarkable comeback. I think the first magazine we published in 4 years. So second edition of this latest revival of Bitcoin Magazine print. I think it's a excellent, very well designed, beautiful piece of art to have and collect. And these are scarce, guys. They're valuable. I've got a couple sealed up here. Some of them go for $1,000 a pop right now. So definitely get yourself a couple of them, and you can get 10% off anything in the Bitcoin Magazine store with the promo code FOMO, FOMO.
Yeah, and definitely while limited supplies last through the end of April, or if we run out of tickets or pre-sale tickets for 2023, definitely go to the website or go to b.tc/conference/2023. We've got the cheapest GA tickets that you can possibly get and the cheapest whale tickets you can possibly get. So those are both on sale. Like I said, there actually is a cap, or if April 30th comes first, or yeah, April 30th comes first, whichever one comes first, that limits the supply and the prices go up. Hugh, anything to you as I drop stuff in the chat?
No, I want Alex to talk so everyone can see his dog.
Oh yeah, my dog's very jealous. She wants to be a part of the stream. She was whining for attention, so here she is. She's got plenty of Bitcoin herself, don't worry. All right, guys, we'll see you on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe. We're going live next.
Yep, sounds good.
But yeah,
Before
buy
we
this
do
dip.
this, we're dropping some stats in the chat for those of you who stuck around during this whole stream. So hang tight. There will be a quick little carrot code on YouTube.
Buy me a little time. Q, dance or do something while I get the code ready.
Yo, you know what I actually realized though? This hoodie is not for sale anymore. I have one extra one in a size medium. I will gladly
selling it for 2 Bitcoins.
I will gladly send it to anyone who wants it. So DM me. I don't need 50 of these hoodies. But also, like, you can match with Alex and I. So there's that.
Yeah, I don't have any. Well, I got more stuff to plug. I got some shoes. You want some Bitcoin shoes? I got some Genesis prints. What else do we got? I would say the most important purchase you could make, though, is really a cold card. If you don't have one already, they just released the Mach 4. Yeah. And I need to get myself one, so I can't really speak to that one. But I love the 3. It's great.
I need to hit up NVK. I paid for it. He just hasn't shipped it to me yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just had a couple shipped to my brother, so I gotta call him and see how they're running.
Yeah.
But
all
cool,
right,
guys. We'll catch you Monday.
Peace out, everyone.